Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw us some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall.
And I am hot as shit. I mean, I guess people on the Patreon...
Has that not hit the main
know.
feed yet?
Yeah,
okay.
Patreon doesn't know. Now I'm the one who doesn't have AC in their living quarters. So Niall can see that I have the lights turned off because, like, you know, you don't think about the little bit of extra heat that the lights in your room put out there for you. And now I'm like thinking about it. You know, it's been like 80 plus degrees, and therefore the way our house works, it's like 85 to 88 degrees with humidity inside the house. It's crazy. So
I thought you were going to say it was 98 degrees and rising.
Yes, if it hits 90 something degrees, we're going to have, I'm going to be hooting and hollering at my landlord's doorstep. I
blame Nick Lachey.
Yeah. So, that's, you know, basically what I'm saying is if I say anything stupid or say anything wrong this episode, I can't really take any responsibility for that because of my current conditions,
you have heat-induced psychosis that sets in, so you can't be held responsible for anything you say.
No, it's legit crazy. Like, you can see, Niall, well, maybe you can't, but like all of the like audio insulation stuff, treatment stuff that you set me up with, it is just like all falling off the wall. Like, it was falling off before, but in the heat, it has just fully peeled off the wall. I'm assuming shit melted or something.
Yeah, a lot of the adhesives are temperatures, a real sumbitch with those things.
Yeah. So anyways, I figured, you know, I was thinking, you know, as I was sort of thinking about what I wanted to do for this episode, my mind, it began to wander to hanging out at the beach and
wait, are you saying you did a hot topic for when you're dealing with like a heat thing? You didn't revisit and find some new like Nazi settlements in Antarctica or some shit?
No, I mean, look, you know, I was just thinking like, oh, the heat surrounding me, like it would be nice to have like the ocean or a pool nearby to just take a dip when I'm getting a little overheated. The way I've been sort of doing it now is I've been, we don't have a bathtub, so I've been filling up the sink and stripping down nude in the kitchen and just kind of climbing in ass first into the sink that I filled up with water. And it doesn't do the trick per se, but my ass gets wet and a little cooler, and that's kind of fun for me.
You're taking what we call the younger brother's bath.
Yeah,
that's where you're still in the little, you're taking a bath in the sink.
Yeah,
and your older brother has now moved on to the tub.
Yes, exactly. And you know, my roommate Elliot, you know, he'll come and be like, "Oh, taking a sink bath as an adult, huh?" And he'll pick me up out of the sink, and he'll put me onto the floor and, like, you know, shove me around like a hockey puck with my slippery ass.
So okay, the problem is,
yeah,
I have seen the shenanigans that happen around friend of the show Elliot
Mhm.
and people being drunk, and that is not entirely outside of the realm of possibility
That's,
as a thing that would happen.
that's fair, but let me tell you something, Niall. We are both stone cold sober doing this.
Oh, okay. So
Um,
yeah, this is just pure. I don't know.
it
This is just a
yeah,
fun little activity
it's
between
our
friends.
lunchtime activity. And I mean, it's I don't know, it's fun for both of us, I guess is what I'm saying. And
Okay.
my a little part of like a little bit of my lower half of my body gets cooled off, and that's what matters to me.
just just
Um,
like 5% of your body
yeah,
mass gets cooled
yes,
off.
yes.
Okay.
Uh, no, but I was thinking about beaches and pools and stuff, and at the same time, Niall, every once in a while, I mean, you know me, I feel compelled to get into some sort of alternate concept, alternate format for like an idea that's already well established in our show's canon, right?
Okay.
So I kind of was like, let's get into some cryptozoology in a way we haven't really covered exactly before. Uh, I love the subgenres of cryptozoology, like fearsome critters, I would consider sort of a subgenre, or like
Yeah. Rats
certain,
of abnormal size.
yeah, large animals, like abnormally sized animals where they shouldn't be, or like, how certain cryptids have these different late related species, like variations of El Chupacabra, like the Grunch in New Orleans is a type of chupacabra, maybe. Um, so while I was thinking about hanging out at the beach and a new angle for cryptozoology, it dawned on me that we haven't gotten too deep on a big wide world of hoaxes.
Oh, okay. I
Um,
was really hoping you were going to tell me that you've got an idea for a perfume that smells like the beach.
oh well, the thing is, I think that's already been done. Somebody's already got that going, and you know who maybe would have at least have probably been familiar with the smell of the beach, or maybe could have come up with another sort of smell that would have been interesting, that's more related to our topic. But the beach is related, but follow me here. Maybe we could have done like a mermaid themed sort of eau de mermaid. Uh, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the something that has that special zesty fucking bullshit. It smells like.
Yeah.
Look, that's not the thing. I was trying to pull some other bullshit that you always see on perfume bottles, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
And so it came out with what I think is my name is. And that is not what I meant.
I am.
Look, we're rolling with it. I am a mermaid. That is what I was about to say.
That is
by
the
accident.
name of this perfume that we're putting out. The first It Gets Weird perfume. It's going to be called Je Suis Mermaid.
Fuck t-shirts, fuck coffee mugs, fuck stickers even. We're starting out by putting out a cologne and perfume line.
And you know who maybe should have put out a cologne and perfume line for that smelled like mermaids?
Yeah.
P.T. Barnum, I would say, would have been pretty
Yeah.
familiar with the smell of mermaid. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I do know about that P.T. Barnum did have a sideshow attraction of a mermaid for quite some time. And I think that cologne would have elements of prop makeup and animal abuse. I think would be the main flavor notes of that perfume.
Okay, you're onto something here. I just really kind of wanted to look at hoaxes, and less like like local yokel. That's fun. Claims he got a plaster cast of Bigfoot's foot. I wanted the more P.T. Barnum showmanship, early hoax stuff. That's kind of what I wanted to look at, and I found two. There are two that I've known about for years, since before we started the podcast. Just very well known. Although I guess we kind of talked about, oh shit, what's it called? The jackalope.
Yeah,
which is sort of in the same vein. There's a sort of, I don't know whether I could articulate, but there's some essence to the type of hoax I'm thinking of. It's like a particular time period, and people tried to pass off, creatures or stuffed creatures and taxidermy as being other things, right?
I think the word you're looking for is carny.
Yes.
You're
Yes.
dealing with a certain type of carny hoax here, which is I am all for. I think carny shit is phenomenal. I'm down to clown with this stuff.
Yes, it's interesting stuff to me. I'd like to know more about it, and there's plenty of books on the history of this stuff, so I'll have to get more in depth on that. But there are a lot of hoaxes under this sort of umbrella, the Barnum style, the showman hoaxes. But I wanted to talk about two of the most famous ones that I personally know of. So, without further ado, our first cryptid style hoax is the Fiji Mermaid.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah. I have. This is the thing that I see referenced all the time. I think it gets referenced in like Hellboy and like
Yeah.
all sorts of places that deal with like the paraphernalia of the obscure, that whole kind of thing. But I can't say that I actually know the story of the Fiji Mermaid. I just am aware of it in the like broad sense that it gets referenced as a sideshow attraction.
Yeah. It is the hoax of hoaxes because Fiji Mermaid now at this point, like while it is a very specific thing, like an actual specific object, Fiji Mermaid is often used as a sort of catch-all term for a faked cryptid thing, or I think sometimes it even gets just used to refer to as a cryptid. So like, I've seen it used as this like sort of tongue-in-cheek term for hoaxed cryptid creature things.
Okay.
So it's extremely, it's important to the canon. I mean, it's funny because I don't even think the Fiji Mermaid gets too often referred to explicitly as a cryptid, but its story is effectively a mermaid, in my opinion, falls under the banner of cryptid. It's one of those cryptid things where it leans a little bit more towards mythology and folklore, rather than the more contemporary version of cryptozoology where it's like this biological, scientific thing. You know what I'm saying? So,
basically, for me, if fairies are considered cryptids, if you categorize that in that kind of thing as a cryptid, I think you can pretty safely call it mermaid
for sure. And what this I think is why I think I find the Fiji Mermaid so fun and interesting is it's almost like trying to straddle that gap between mythological creature and like biological like creature that can be studied by science. It's it's trying to like bridge that gap between those two things, but only as a farce to make money. So there is this Englishman named Dr. J. Griffin, and he claims to be a member of a society called the British Lyceum of Natural History. And in July of 1842, Dr. Griffin, I should say, shows up in New York City. And he goes to New York City with a very interesting little creature on his person, a mermaid that he claims was caught near the Fiji Islands in the South Pacific. Now, over the summer prior to his arrival, they had been getting letters from correspondents who are describing the doctor with his mermaid.
Okay.
So when Dr. Griffin shows up to New York and checks into his hotel, there are just straight up reporters waiting for him there, and they're asking to see this mermaid. And he is not entirely happy about it. He sort of begrudgingly reveals the mermaid to the reporters. And apparently, whatever it is that these people saw when he showed them on, I imagine like the steps to his hotel, it convinced them. They believed that what he had brought was real.
Okay.
So very convincing little mermaid creature that he has on him.
I like that is I like that description because a thing that no one has ever seen, whatever this man pulled out of his briefcase or whatever the fuck, that whatever container, maybe he's got like a gator case, road case for it or some shit. Whatever he pulled out was convincing enough to prove that it was this creature that no one has ever seen.
Yeah,
I think that's fun.
it's interesting because we'll find out here soon, but this was actually not the first time the Fiji Mermaid had been like taken around a place and shown to people as sort of an exhibition. But this is where it became a big deal through this guy and we'll get to it now, P.T. Barnum, because pretty quickly after Dr. Griffin's meeting with the press, P.T. Barnum, who he's done a lot of things, he did a lot of stuff, but the term that you would have used for him was showman. Carney, like you said, Niall, which would be a term that I think came later. But like, yeah, like P.T. Barnum, when you think of like the movie that I think of is Big Fish.
Okay.
But I know I have a very...
I think of Freaks, but that's...
Yes.
that's just because I've watched that more recently.
That's accurate. Like, basically just these carnivals that put, freaks of nature or whatever on display, people who can do amazing things. There's a lot of trickery involved and deception. And part of P.T. Barnum's whole thing was that he liked to curate strange... essentially like samples of cryptids. You could say. Oddities, yes. So P.T. Barnum shows up and he starts visiting the offices of the different newspapers around there. And he basically tells everybody that he had been in correspondence with Dr. Griffin, asking if he could display this mermaid that he had. P.T. Barnum asks if he can display this mermaid at his museum. And Dr. Griffin, for whatever reason, declined. Did not want him to display this mermaid. So this is a funny little thing here. Barnum is like, okay, he's not going to let me show the mermaid. But tell you what, since I'm here at your offices, at the newspaper's office, I have this woodcut of a beautiful mermaid woman, a depiction of a mermaid. Her tits are out and everything. Beautiful.
Okay.
I was going to use it for my exhibition of this doctor's mermaid. It's no use to me now, so tell you what, you guys can have it. Put it in your newspaper. And
So he was like, I don't have access to the actual thing, but I do have this, like, what amounts to a drawing of a fucking big titty mermaid. That you can use that, though. Put that in your paper. It's the same.
Yeah, it's... Well, so, and here's what's funny about this, too, is the way this seems to have gone down is he told all of the newspapers that he visited with this woodcut of a mermaid for his exhibition that he had planned. He seemed to tell all of the newspapers that each of them had an exclusive in this mermaid woodcut exhibition thing that he had planned.
Oh my God.
So July 17th on Sunday, this mermaid woodcut would appear in all these different newspapers. And at the same time, Barnum would then go around the city distributing pamphlets about mermaids. I believe 10,000 copies of this pamphlet went around. And they're kind of depicted as, seductive ocean ladies. They're sort of, I guess it's supposed to be kind of sexy or whatever. And here I have actually the advertisement for the Fiji Mermaid from the Charleston Courier, January 1843. And here's what it says. With, again, you have the woodcut image of the mermaid. She's like running her hands through her hair and she's topless, and she's sort of like her tail and her upper body are like popping out of the water. And it says, this grand, interesting, and very cheap exhibition at Masonic Hall, embracing the most wonderful curiosity in the world, the mermaid, and the ornithorhynchus orangutan with fancy glass blowing by a most excellent artist, together with a unique and astonishing entertainment on the stage at 7:30 o'clock p.m., consisting of Signor Veronia's inimitable mechanical figures representing human life and ventriloquism and magic by Mr. Wyman, who has scarce an equal in the world in his line, will continue at the above place until Tuesday evening only. And then it's this price here, admission to the hall only 50 cents, children under 12 half price. So
I love the idea, like, I don't know if this is the actual thing or not, but the pictures of the Fiji Mermaid I've seen are like, it looks like a specter. It looks like a fucking skeleton that is just like, you know, it is not this thing. So the fact that he's walking around with this woodcut of this beautiful siren, like, horny thing and being like, this is it, like, here you go, is so funny with what I think the Fiji Mermaid actually looks like.
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that.
Okay.
So this series of events that were just entirely constructed by Barnum caused people to be incredibly, like, there was an uproar about seeing this mermaid, and it was now being referred to as Fiji Mermaid. So people are around the city talking about it a bunch. There's a lot of discussion among folks about whether or not it was real, and people wanting to see the thing for themselves. So as it turns out, it's so famous isn't the right word, but it's caused so much controversy and so much talk around the city that Dr. Griffin finally agrees to allow P.T. Barnum to exhibit the mermaid at the concert hall on Broadway. So the exhibit happens. There's an enormous crowd. And this, I fucking love this part. So P.T. Barnum was like, all right, so I have this mermaid from you, Dr. Griffin, and I think what you should do is sort of lecture, because you're the adventurer, the explorer who found this mermaid. You should lecture to the people who are here to see it. And
I love the gall of this man so far. I love carnies. I love people that just really like get their shit off and are kind of scummy and like
yes,
like con men-y kind of people. I really like con men. And just the thing of like, oh, you're not going to let me show your mermaid? I'm going to bring this fucking big titty woodcut around to all the newspapers
yes,
and like get a public outcry to force you to let me view this mermaid. And then on the day with no preparation, I'm going to be like, why don't you just like go out there and talk about this thing? Like, so that P.T. Barnum doesn't have to do goddamn anything.
Let's,
he probably does, whatever.
Let's see where this goes. So Dr. Griffin does end up doing a lecture for these crowds of people showing up to see the mermaid. And he's talking about his theories of natural history and his experience in, you know, his career as an explorer. And one of the main things that has survived this lecture is one of his theories was a theory arguing for the existence of mermaids, that they must be real. The reason mermaids must be real, according to this Dr. Griffin guy, is that all things on land have a counterpart in the ocean. So that would be seahorses, sea lions, sea dogs.
Sea cucumbers.
Sea cucumbers. We could keep going.
Yeah.
So
look, this theory has no holes. I'm 100% I'm behind this theory. Mermaids must exist.
Naturally, we must assume that there is a sea human, right? So
yes.
The press is going...
It's called the manatee.
Yes, that's true. The press is going wild still, putting a lot of attention on this thing. It's getting reviewed in the papers. And in fact, I have a review from August 5th, 1842 in the New York Sun that says this. And man, I love mid-19th century, early 20th century. I love newspapers from around that time, because here's what it says. We've seen it. What? Why that mermaid? The mischief you have, where? What is it? It's twin sister to the deucedest looking thing imaginable, half fish, half flesh, and taken by and large, the most odd of all oddities earth or sea has ever produced. Succinct, fun, punchy, love it.
God, it's like I'm reading a like early Stanley written Spider-Man comic.
It's
God
so
damn.
good. I love it. So they exhibit this thing for a week at Concert Hall, and then Dr. Griffin, presumably because it's so successful, agrees to allow the mermaid to remain in New York City for a while longer. So it gets moved to P.T. Barnum's American Museum, where it was put on exhibit for a month, quote, without extra charge. So what that means is you can get tickets to the museum, but the display that has this extremely popular mermaid is free to go see if you have a ticket to the museum. And consequently, ticket sales at Barnum's Museum triple. So
they didn't make it like an e-ticket thing, you know,
No,
where it wasn't, you got your A's, B's, C's, D's.
No,
yeah.
although
Okay.
they did have a very awkward situation with Live Nation where,
Okay.
you know, as tickets started to sell, the price started going up, and that was really awkward. But people were buying that shit regardless. So people were,
And the venue took like 25% of merch sales.
Yeah.
It was really
it's
a fucked
really,
up deal.
really rough. And I mean, we should have seen this pattern. It's Fiji Mermaid to Taylor Swift pipeline. We should have seen this coming. So now I'm going to tell you the truth of what went down here, because there's been a couple things that are
Is
shady.
the doctor in on all of this?
Oh yeah, he is.
Okay, I figured.
So first of all, the advertisements that are put in the paper, like you said, it's depicted as a beautiful young woman with a heaving bosom and all this shit that
It's like an X-rated version of the old Starbucks logo.
Yeah, it's very like, you know, designed to catch people's attention, because people are horny for boobs, I guess.
You guess?
I guess,
Kyle?
yeah, I think
You're
so.
not. You can't say that with any certainty.
It's the jury's still out. But so the reality is the creature that was on display, that quote unquote Dr. Griffin was carrying with him, was a horrible withered thing. So a correspondent from the Charleston Courier reviewed it like this, quote, "Of one illusion, the sight of the wonder has forever robbed us. We shall never again discourse, even in poesy, of mermaid beauty, nor woo a mermaid even in our dreams. For the Fiji lady is the very incarnation of ugliness." And then in Barnum's autobiography, he actually describes the creature as a, quote, "ugly, dried up, black-looking, and diminutive specimen, its arms thrown up, giving it the appearance of having died in great agony." So if you look up a picture of this thing, there are recreations of it. I don't think we have a picture of the original, maybe.
Okay.
But it really is like a horrible...
It's like a skeleton.
It's not total skeleton, but it is like a withered... I mean, I'll tell you what it actually is. It's a withered monkey carcass. So it's this like baby... It's this young monkey that's been... I don't know if it was killed or died naturally. Impossible to say, actually. I hope it died naturally, but I kind of doubt it. But it literally, like, it's holding one hand up next to its head and the other kind of like directly beneath the other side of its jaw, and its like mouth is agape, and it just is like curled up. And I think I remember reading in some descriptions that it did in fact have like larger sagging breasts, and it just looks pretty gnarly. And then from the bottom half of it, guess what? It was a fish. I don't know what fish, but the bottom half of the thing was like a dried out husk of a fish.
That makes sense from what I've seen.
Yeah. So,
all right,
upper body of a dead baby monkey and the lower body of a dried fishtail. And like you said, yes, Dr. Griffin was a complete fraud. So he was not this English explorer man. And there actually was no such thing as the British Lyceum of Natural History. This guy's real name was Levi Lyman, and he was an accomplice of Barnum, to do, carny shit. And the entire idea of putting this all together, all of the things that we just described, that was P.T. Barnum himself.
Okay.
So
he's a storyteller. He gets all the stuff put together.
If you can weave a compelling fiction, then you can get people to believe a lot of things, it turns out. And so the letters that were sent to New York, to the New York newspapers in the area, that was entirely by Barnum. And then he just the entire publicity stunt was just planned. Like Dr. Griffin showing up in New York and with the mermaid, and him not wanting to show the mermaid, and all the things I just described. That was all done as a stunt to sell this thing. And the idea that this doctor was carrying it around was to give it sort of the sense that there's a science behind it. It makes it sound legitimate.
It gives it the doctor bump where it's someone smart showing it to you, so they won't be lying.
Yes. So the mermaid, of course, like I said, total fake, and Barnum was fully aware it was fake because he had actually. Oh my God. Okay. He had actually leased the mermaid previously from another showman in Boston, from a guy named Moses Kimball. And I believe I read that he leased this mermaid for $12.50 an hour, which suggests to me, because $12.50 an hour is I think it was $12.50 an hour. Yeah, that's got to be a lot for that time period.
Yeah, so, if entrance to the museum is 50 cents, $12.50 an hour, you gotta churn some people through that museum.
He must have figured out a way. Maybe it was per day. It might have been per day, actually. I know the number $12.50 is in there. $12.50. So he leased it from this guy, and Barnum had even taken the thing and gone to a naturalist, effectively a biologist, to check to see if it was authentic in any way, and was told with absolute certainty that this thing was not a mermaid. It was not real. It was two creatures fused together. And Moses Kimball, the guy he was leasing it from, the other showman, had bought it from a Japanese seaman, which we'll get to that here in a minute. But
I do think it would be funny if someone found out about this and then they just started calling it a chimera, which they technically wouldn't really be lying.
Yeah.
You just call this thing a fucking chimera and you're good to go.
Yeah, this is yeah. It does fit that description. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not this creature's real. P.T. Barnum knows it doesn't matter if it's real, because if he can convince everybody that it's real, then his entire scheme works. So that's when he hires Dr. Griffin to kind of vouch for the thing, and everything that we just described. And in A.H. Saxon, a biographer who has written about Barnum, says this was a classic example of Barnum's ability to, quote, take a mildly interesting object that had been around for some time and to puff it almost overnight into an earth-shaking event. So, the Fiji Mermaid, I remember reading, had been around since, I think it was 1819. It was the 1820s, and it had already been kind of used in similar ways. But because Barnum got involved and started using it for this kind of a thing, that's when it really truly exploded in popularity.
Okay.
So
this thing had been around for a while and had just been going from huckster to huckster.
Yes.
and I guess there had to have been that had to have been just like an industry back then. Like,
yes.
because everything was so regional, you had like almost a territory system for circuses.
You could not like look up online like what's going on in Boston. Like you what and if somebody was showcasing a mermaid somewhere and they didn't have, like the guy said, the puff that Barnum was able to put into it, then like you're not going to hear about it. Not all the way in, you're just probably not going to hear about it. It's, I don't know. That's just always such a fascinating thing to think about at this time. Like people just, communication isn't what it is now, and we just take it for granted. So it's funny to think that you could just pull this stunt just by moving like a couple cities over, or another state.
If you travel overnight to another area, you could commit a murder in Boston, and as long as you get to
yes.
like Indianapolis before the cops find out about it, you will never be caught.
Yeah, pretty much. So where this had actually come from, where this guy Moses Kimball had gotten it, this thing, like I said, it already had a history, and I guess what this thing was a piece of traditional art that was created by fishermen in Japan and the East Indies, who would create effectively fake taxidermy mermaids by stitching the upper bodies of apes onto these lower bodies of fish and fishtails. Can you imagine, like, think about the fact that, can you imagine how much worse DuckTales would have been as a show if it was about fish people instead of duck people? What do you think's easier to anthropomorphize there, ducks or fish?
I feel like, man, I was trying to work myself around to an Avatar 2 joke here, and I have nothing. Like, because that's all, that's the water people as opposed to the fucking forest people, which is, yeah. But, like anthropomorphizing fish into people, it would be like SpongeBob, like that would be what you're dealing with.
It's just not quite as clean, I think, as and obvious as a duck. People think ducks are cute. I imagine less people find fish cute, but frankly, I find fish cute. There's some cute fish out there. I like fish.
But Kyle, if an anthropomorphized fish were to wear pants, would it wear it like this or like this?
See, the
great audio only joke right there.
I was going to say, the fucked up thing about that joke is Niall can only see me. So I have to guess in my head, and I do have an image of my head of what those two pants wearing, situations were for the fish, but I'll never tell.
That's a little joke that you keep just in your own brain.
Yeah.
You got to sit there and just enjoy that for yourself.
So I guess that these Fiji Mermaid creations that these Japanese fishermen and seamen were creating, it says that they were used in religious ceremonies. I didn't look into this. Maybe I should have. I'm assuming that that's approximately correct. And supposedly the actual Fiji mermaid that would end up going on display at P.T. Barnum's museum and whatnot had been around since as early as 1810.
Wait, he sells this shit on Whatnot?
What?
Oh, do you know about Whatnot?
No, I don't. Is this a website?
It's like a website where I know about it from wrestling. So the first people I saw do it were the major wrestling guys, but Danhausen and people do stuff where they sell like signed shit and stuff. It's like eBay, but for like with like profiles for people. So like it's like low level celebrity eBay.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was that joke only works if you know
sorry. I'm so sorry. P.T. Barnum would have done a killing on Whatnot.
He'd be selling fucking like woodcuts of horny mermaids all day.
Yes. So the story goes that the Fiji Mermaid, the original one, was bought by Dutch merchants and then resold in 1822 to American sea captain Samuel Barrett Eads. This story's fucked up because they sold it to this Eads guy for $6,000, which at that time is an insane amount of money. And after purchasing the mermaid, like he had to sell, Edes had to sell his ship to afford this mermaid, but believed that by putting it on exhibition in London, he could make a killing off it. So presumably make back his $6,000, then some. Now, there apparently, I didn't get into the story of all of this. I just know the brief parts of it. It's further complicated because Edes did not own the ship that he sold. Like, he didn't own the whole thing, and so that would cause problems for him. And then by September 1822, Edes went back to London with this mermaid, and it just was not popular. People did not come and see it. It did not make a fortune for him. But the point is, Edes was not a particularly good showman, whereas Barnum is possibly the greatest showman to have ever done the damn thing. So he also had it like immediately debunked by actual British naturalists when he tried to pass it off as legitimate in London. And the press just like tore it apart, which again, the press tearing it apart in London, that never made it to fucking Boston and New York City, at least not like in time to put down Barnum's thing. So people just weren't into seeing this fake mermaid. And then, of course, Edes got sued by the owner of the ship that he sold. And this is so insane. He was, to pay back the money that he had embezzled from this ship owner, he was sentenced by court to pay back the money by working with the original ship owner on a ship until his debt was repaid. And so for the next 20 years, he sailed on the sea as a means of repaying the debt and never did because he died.
Okay.
And so the ownership of this mermaid would then pass to his son, who then sold it to Moses Kimball for a total fraction of what it had originally been bought for by his father. So really, really, really rough story for this Edes guy who just ruined a significant portion of his life trying to pass off the Fiji Mermaid as an attraction.
I like that he got so immediately like just turned, like everyone was like, yeah, no, and then it got sold to America and became like a fucking overnight sensation. That's I think that says something.
It's really fucked. Now here's a funny little thing. Barnum had put the mermaid in his museum for about a month and decided, let's take this thing on tour and take it to the South. So he entrusts his uncle, Alanson Taylor, with the responsibility of taking care of this thing on this tour. And Barnum, I guess, didn't think that the tour would be anything special. You know, it'd be pretty much typical fare for him. But apparently when Taylor took the mermaid to South Carolina, they ended up caught in between a feud between two rival newspapers, the Charleston Courier and the Charleston Mercury. And the dispute was focused around the Fiji Mermaid. So Richard Yeadon, editor of the Courier, he basically reviewed the thing. He wrote that he believed that the Fiji Mermaid was real in the newspaper. And then another local amateur naturalist named John Bachman also published a review in the Mercury where he basically just was scathing, just like this is completely fake, a quote crude humbug created by our Yankee neighbors, and this, I guess, escalated quickly to the point where apparently there was an intervention staged of mutual friends between these two people at the newspapers. Because if they hadn't intervened, it would have ended in a duel between these two people. So
newspaper people dueling over the Fiji Mermaid would have
fucking
been
awesome.
Like one of those just glorious stories from history.
Yes. So it was so excellent. But because of this fight between these newspapers, it ended this southern tour, and they had to secretly ship the Fiji Mermaid back to New York. So for the next 2 decades, the Fiji Mermaid ends up kind of going between Kimball's Museum in Boston and Barnum's Museum in New York, back and forth. And then in 1859, probably the biggest thing that happened with her in her last sort of, life tour thing, if you will, Barnum ended up taking her on a tour of London, which is hilarious since London had already technically seen the Fiji Mermaid many years prior, and a man died on repaying his debt on the sea.
Yeah.
For that. So, but Barnum was able to do it.
This thing already has like blood on its hand. The Fiji Mermaid has already killed a man, effectively.
Yes. So he comes back from London in June of 1859 and brings her back to Kimball's Museum. And this is the last known place of the Fiji Mermaid, because after that, we have no idea what happened to her. There's a couple theories. One of them is that she was destroyed. This is so ridiculous. So Barnum's Museum burned down in 1865. And sometimes people will say that that's where the Fiji Mermaid was, and that's how, why we don't have the Fiji Mermaid anymore. However, Kimball's Museum in Boston also burned down in the early 1880s, and the realistic thing is that the Fiji Mermaid was probably at Kimball's Museum at the time, and because it just sat there for decades, and did probably burn down at that museum. But for some reason, some people mix it up and think it's Barnum's Museum that had her, and whatever. It's kind of not that important.
Either way, it fucking died in a fire.
Yes. So Harvard's
that thing's crispier than it's ever looked before.
Yes, and
after
just
a while,
total ash. So Harvard's Peabody Museum of Archaeology and Ethnology has currently, I believe, a quote unquote mermaid that has been theorized as being the original Fiji Mermaid. And their records claim that this mermaid was saved from the fire at Kimball's Museum and then donated to Harvard by Kimball's heirs. However, many have pointed out that the body of the mermaid at Peabody's looks absolutely nothing like the descriptions that we have of it. It's like a much smaller one, and it looks, I guess, more shoddy. It doesn't look quite as well crafted. And so it's much more likely that the original Fiji Mermaid was destroyed in the fire in the 1880s. So that is the story of the Fiji Mermaid. It is maybe one of the biggest cryptozoological hoaxes ever. Incredibly popular during its time, and is just now a catch-all term for fake cryptids and things, and still gets referenced all over the place. I even saw that it shows up in the X-Files in season 2. Literally an episode called Humbug. Fantastic. Yeah, Fiji Mermaid is gone, but it is like one of the biggest hoaxes in popular culture and cryptozoological and hoax history, I guess. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. We're not going to get to all of 3 of the things that I wanted to talk about, but I do have one more for you. So I'll have to do another hoax episode down the line, because I find this stuff a lot of fun.
Look, if you've opened the door for hoax episodes, that's a whole new avenue here, and I'm excited to journey into the new frontier.
It's a lot of fun. This stuff specifically is very fun to me. I don't feel like we get this kind of hoaxery anymore. The closest thing that we get is the what was the thing?
Like colloidal silver type stuff?
Well, no, I was going to say there was a hoax that I think was in West Virginia in like the 2000s that we talked about that has like a really silly name. And it's this like little gremlin looking creature. I covered this a while back.
That sounds vaguely familiar.
I'm not remembering the name, but yeah. So like, that's the last thing I can think in like recent memory that like truly attempts to pass itself off as like a legitimate cryptid.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So our next thing, begins with Louis Francois Fernand Hector de Loys. That name ring a bell? De Loys?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, what if I say Loys Ape?
Oh shit! That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah, this one I've been aware of this one for quite some time now. So this was a guy, a Swiss geologist, who was born in the late 1900s, or late 1800s, but like most of their adult life was the early 1900s, and he was in this like relatively new field within geology of like oil field prospecting, which that's an interesting field of quote unquote research itself that not really a thing on our podcast, but I've read a little bit about it and it gets fucking crazy. So he did a lot of traveling, this guy, mostly under, just looking for oil fields and prospecting and whatnot. A lot of his time was spent in parts of Europe, Africa, and the United States. And this would be kind of the golden age of exploiting oil. But that's not really what he's known for. He is not known for any geological research. Loys is known for a strange photograph with a strange backstory.
Okay.
So in 1920, a group of men make it to the bank of the Tara River, which is a tributary of the Rio Catatumbo, bordering on Venezuela and Colombia. And they were the last handful of men of a group that was originally 20 prospectors for the Netherlands oil company Colon Development, which I can't remember exactly how many of them it said there were. Maybe it says somewhere in here. But let me put it this way. 20 prospectors set out on this adventure. Way less than 20 came back. Lots of people died on this, which like these like 19th century, early 20th century expeditions, the stories are filled with so much death and people dying in terrible, funny, or fucked up ways.
You have to start with a full crew to maybe come back with half of them.
Yes, they had originally ventured into the Sierra de Perijé, which was a range of mountains they'd started in 1917. And Loys was in charge of this expedition. And they were just trying to map, geologically speaking, this region to try and, get out where they suspected oil reserves to be. Now, this is a pretty dangerous jungle area with lots of tropical creatures, parasites, all diseases, all kinds of shit. But one of the ways that they tended to die was the Motilones Indians. I hope I'm saying that right. Who killed a lot of members of the expedition. They were hostile to the outsiders. And so the expedition was going to be deemed a failure, which is insane because they're out there for 3 years dying. And they're like, look, we have to cut our fucking losses. Many of us are dead and we didn't do anything. And like just 3 years of your life just destroyed. And
just
gone.
Just
crazy. So it was a total failure, but then something strange happened at the very tail end of their journey. So they're on the shores of Rio Tara when Loys spots what he at first I think thinks are bears, but realized quickly they were more monkey-like, bipedal monkey creatures. They were covered with red fur and did not have tails. And these two animals were like immediately sort of threatening. They walked upright and they were approaching the expedition and they were apparently visibly very irritated. So they were like hooting and hollering and shouting, not and they're like waving their arms and brandishing them. And eventually, apparently, they also would then defecate into their own hands and then fling it at the expedition as projectiles. So the expedition responds by shooting at the apes. And they manage to kill one of them that they think is a female. And then the male that was accompanying her runs back into the jungle. Now, Loys and these folks had never seen a monkey that was this big. So they tried to preserve the skull and take photos of this thing's body. And so they're traveling with the skull of the thing in these photos that they'd taken of it, but during their trip down the river, the boat capsizes and most of the photos and the skull get lost. So when he finally gets back home with the last shreds of evidence that he has this one single photograph that he kept in his notebook. It's even described that he sort of forgot about the encounter of the with the monkeys, although I think that's maybe not quite that's not necessarily true. But it was only until years later that a friend of his, a Swiss anthropologist named George Alexis Montandon, had, I guess, somehow accidentally rediscovered the photo. And in the photo, I mean, you can look it up. If you just look up Deloys, Deloys, ape, you can find images of this thing. It's very famous. So check it out if you get a second to look it up. But it's sitting on a box in front of a river with this stick propping its head up so that you can see the full body of the creature.
Yeah. It's the face looks so weird. The eyes look like it's wearing big round nerd glasses. And it's got a full I'm just going to look. There's no other way to say it. Dick fully out.
Yes. So remember this is a female.
Oh yeah, you're right. Shit.
And the thing is, I may have read a little blurb. I may have read a little blurb that I didn't ever really want to know about this type of ape, because this obviously is not a real ape, but people think it's a spider monkey. And I ended up running across some facts about, spider monkey genitalia that I was like, okay, that's why that looks weird. So
this is what spider monkey genitalia looks like?
I think this is...
It looks like kind of a weird tail?
I think this is kind of... look, spider monkeys have bigger clitorises than you might expect, apparently. So that's a whole thing. So spider monkeys have big clits, I guess. All
right.
It's very spider monkey-esque in a lot of different ways. And like one of the big, we'll get into it, but a lot of the things are like, also, they don't have, they have tails, but this thing doesn't. We'll get into it. They are looking at so Deloys has like dimensions of the box that he's propped the thing up on in the photograph. And he claims that the dimensions of this were 45 to 50 centimeters high. So then people estimate that this creature is 150 to 160 centimeters tall. Basically, they end up publishing, Montandon specifically himself publishes a detailed description of this ape creature as if it were a genuine species, calling it Amaranthropoides loysi, which is, Deloys' American human-like ape.
Okay.
Now, of course, it's got some features that are not characteristic of your typical monkey. Its upright posture, no tail. Deloys claims it only had 32 teeth, and I believe that most monkeys have 36. But Montandon was claiming to have been super excited about this discovery of this unknown ape species, and started going around South America collecting stories of and legends of giant ape creatures. And so, he's got stories like Mayan, these stories of these Mayan statues that are extremely large and depict these ape-like figures. Or there's the Caribe tribe of Guyana, who believe in something called Canaima, which were demons that roamed the jungle with clubs, attacking whoever would enter their domain. And in Colombia, there are creatures called Didi that are described as half man and half monkey. And there's another similar legend in Brazil and Venezuela of a creature called Vastiri. Now, P.H. Goss reports in 1861, an author who was a collector of strange natural history stuff. He says this, quote, it is, however, possible that a great anthropoid ape may exist as yet unrecognized by zoologists. On the cataracts of the upper Orinoco, Humboldt heard reports of a hairy man of the woods, which was reputed to build huts, to carry off women, and to devour human flesh. Both Indians and missionaries firmly believe in the existence of this dreaded creature, which they call Vasitri, or the Great Devil. Humboldt suggests that the original of what he boldly calls the fable may exist in the person of one of those large bears, the footsteps of which resemble those of man, and which are believed in every country to attack women. And he seems to claim credit for being the only person to doubt the existence of the great anthropomorphous monkey of America. But it might be permitted in return to ask what large bear is known to inhabit Venezuela, and whether it is true that bears' footsteps have a signal resemblance to those of men, and that bears specially attack women. So they're just saying, like, he's saying, like, okay, there's legends of this thing, and it gets attributed to bears, but, like, the other things that you're talking about, legends of, like, attacking women and stuff, like what bear specifically attacks women, what, et cetera, et cetera. So, Dr. Edward Bancroft in 1769 published a book called Natural History of Guyana. And in there's a description of an encounter with a creature that looks like an orangutan. And George Edwards, another naturalist, said in a text called A Study of Anthropoid Life in 1757, he also describes a strange ape-like creature that would maybe resemble the photograph, maybe if you want it to, I suppose. So this is like, these are the kinds of things that this is all hinging on. Is like, we have Deloys, but more specifically his sort of partner Montandon is suggesting that this is the evidence for which we can hang the Loys Ape on. Now, what's kind of weird is this. What I read is that these publications on these the publication on the Amaranthropoides was only accepted by French scientific establishment. I don't know why, specifically the French, but outside of France, specifically in Great Britain and North America, it got torn apart. So an English naturalist named Sir Arthur Keith basically was just like, fuck you, this is a spider monkey. What's happening? It's specifically Ateles belzebuth, which was native in the region, and he claimed that this thing had its tail deliberately cut off or hidden in the photo. So spider monkeys are like like pretty well established as being native to South America. But the largest species was 110 centimeters that they knew of, and his was estimated, the Loys ape was estimated at like 157 centimeters. And the only thing in history that we have to suggest that a monkey larger than the known species of spider monkey, there's these fragmentary remains of a spider monkey that's much, much bigger than modern spider monkeys. And it was a primitive monkey of Brazil called Protopithecus brasiliensis. And it was discovered by a naturalist, Peter W. Lund, in 1838. So we like knew they existed at one point. So there is like a little bit of the, dinosaurs survived to modern era sort of flavor to Loys Ape.
Yeah, so it is some older version of this type of ape that was bigger that just still lived around to... Okay, yes. That makes sense.
Yeah. So things got, this was like a sort of legendary story for a while. And in 1990, there was an American cryptozoological expedition that went out of its way to try and confirm Montanden's research. And this expedition ended up going out to Venezuela. And there they got collected stories about large red monkeys. And they were like showing the photo around, and it was getting referred to as Momo Grande, or Big Ape. However, of course, this expedition could not actually, provide any evidence of these extra large monkeys. People were kind of suggesting already for years that Loys was kind of a fraud and Montanden was a fraud.
Oh, really?
But here's what this expedition had to say after their search for Loys Ape. Quote, "It is sure that Francois Loys was a man of strict science and responsibility, optimistic and friendly and featuring an intrepid spirit of adventure. It seems unlikely that such a scientist may have perpetuated the fraud of the Amaranthropoides only to gain fame. There are sufficient reasons to affirm that Loys was not a liar, especially one unimpeachable document as the original photo taken at a time when photography and image manipulation did not exist at all." So we have the two favorite things of cryptozoology, the paranormal. This person was of sound mind and intellect. They were smart, well-spoken, and image manipulation did not exist, which is just not true. There was plenty.
Yeah, like Photoshop didn't exist. People could still manipulate an image. Like, how old? God, yeah. Sorry. That's a thing that I always laugh about, because like people have been trying to trick you with photographs for literally hundreds of years. It's not like, as long as I'm pretty sure the second photo ever taken, they tried to edit a little bit. Like the first one was like, oh shit, this is working, and then they started trying to lie to you.
There's been plenty, and just all you have to do is look at the spiritualist movement, where they were taking photos of ectoplasm and all these other things that were like later very, very easily proven to be fake. But they look kind of wild back in the day, and probably, a lot of people believe that stuff. So it's like history. There's a history of photo manipulation for as long as we can go back to being able to take photos. So another interesting thing is Loys himself didn't really want to promote the story. There was that official publication that Montanden helped put together in 1929. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This was one by Loys himself. That would come later. In 1929, Loys puts out a publication about the geological expedition, which in his publication, there's absolutely no mention of this creature at all. It's about the expedition. And the only existing publication on the creature was the one that was sort of like put together, and it's sort of suggested by some of the stuff that I read that Montanden was like sort of coercing Loys to do this. But there's not a lot of evidence for that, other than like Loys just seemed to not want to put the article out there. Now, in 1998, we get another article that's published about Loys Ape, written by Pierre Saint-Livres and Isabelle Giraud. And this was basically an article taking down the whole idea, suggesting that Montanden was creating an anthropological hoax. Now, here, big, quick warning, racism discussion for a moment.
Okay.
Montanden believed in a particularly racist conception of human evolution that was pretty popular at the time, which was this polyphyletic origin of humanity, which basically considers the various quote-unquote various human races descending from various local monkey species. So what that means is he believed that Africans evolved from gorillas, Asians came from orangutans. The missing link in the form of this Amaranthropoides was what could work as an example of an evolutionary line for Montanden for spider monkeys and South American Indians, and would have just been, for him, a confirmation of his racist hypothesis, which we know, of course, is just not. It's just not true at all.
Yeah, no.
So ultimately, people are just thinking that the photo is somewhat manipulated. It is likely a common spider monkey, the species Adeles belzebuth, and it was used by this Montandan guy to try and promote a racist version of human evolution. And one of the things that we like, it's not a 100% confirmed thing of its fakery, but there's things to suggest it. And one of the main things that people will point to is that the stumps of non-native trees, banana trees specifically, to that area are featured in this photo. So it doesn't line up with this being in the middle of this jungle that these non-native banana trees can be found.
Gotcha.
So in the July-August edition of the 1999 Venezuelan scientific magazine Intersciencia, they publish a letter that was sent in 1962 from somebody named Enrique Tejera to the editor Guillermo Jose Shale of the magazine Diario El Universal. And here's what this says. And this is translated, so just bear with me. Quote, "This monkey is a myth. I will tell you his story. Mr. Montandan said that the monkey had no tail. That is for sure, but he forgot to say something. It has no tail because it was cut off. I can assure you this, gentlemen, because it was before me that the amputations took place. Who was speaking here in 1917 was working in a camp of the oil exploration industry in the region of Pereja. The geologist was Francois Deloys, the engineer Dr. Martin Tovar-Lange. Deloys was a prankster, and often we laughed at his jokes. One day they gave him a monkey with an ill tail, so it was amputated. Since then, Deloys called him El Hombre Mono, the monkey man. Sometime later, I and Loys went in another region of Venezuela, in an area called Mene Grande. He always walked along the side of his monkey, who died some time later. Deloys decided to take a photo, and I believe that Mr. Montandan will not deny it is the same photograph that he presented today in this 1929 public lecture.
So this like prankster guy was just given this diseased monkey that had its tail amputated.
Yes.
And he was like taking like funny, just like goofy photos to pop his friends. And then a guy goes and tries to present it as the missing link for a fucking like racist evolution alternate theory.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Essentially,
okay.
yeah. It goes on to say, more recently during a visit to Paris, my astonishment was great visiting the Museum of Man. On top of a monumental scale filling the back wall, there was a huge photo with the caption, "The first anthropoid ape discovered in America." It was a photograph of Deloys beautifully modified. The plants were no longer visible in the background, and it was not possible to understand on which kind of box the monkey was sitting. The trick is done so well that within a few years the monkey will be over 2 meters high. Finally, I must warn you, Montandan was not a good person. After the war, he was shot because he betrayed France, his homeland. Sincerely, your friend Enrique Tejera.
Okay.
So the racist monkey theorist was fucking shot for betraying France. On top of his racism crimes of evolution, he was shot for betraying France.
All right. Do you know how he betrayed France?
I don't know. It's just in this letter. I really don't know.
Okay.
So, as far as Deloys is concerned, even though he was involved in this whole thing with this fake ape story, he actually continued his career in geology. In 1926, he worked with the Turkish Petroleum Company. He basically would set up these contacts with geologists and scientists all over the world. In 1928, he became a fellow of the Geological Society of London and would eventually visit Iraq to study the geology there, searching for possible oil reserves in the region. And it was while he was in Iraq that he contracted syphilis, returned back to his hometown of Lausanne in France, where he died on October 16th, 1935. So that is the end of Loys Ape.
All right.
And those are the 2 hoaxes that I have for you in this episode, Niall.
All right. I'm down to do more of these. These are like, I like I like having all other types of things to do as palate cleansers. Like when you get just because there are times you get so bogged down in like government conspiracy theories or like another Bigfoot variation that it's just fun to talk about some people trying to pull the wool over the eyes of the general public and make a quick buck.
Yeah.
Or push a racist pseudoscience theory.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe that's not great, but it's fun to hear about.
It's okay. They shot and killed that guy. So, yeah. Without further ado, Niall, how do you feel about getting into a big question?
I'm all for it.
Okay, Niall. Here's my question to you. First thing that I thought of is like, what if who wins in a fight, the Fiji Mermaid or Loys Ape? That's kind of a bullshit question.
I mean, I think just by the fact that like, okay,
one's in the water, one's on land, and
yeah.
But I was gonna sort of suggest if that was no issue for them.
I think the ape would tear the two halves of the the smaller monkey fish thing apart.
Okay,
and it would be like a glorious burst of carnage as the thing gets ripped in twain.
That's I think probably the most rational answer. So let me give you mine.
Yeah, I think. Well, actually, no. Sorry, I've got one quick thing for you.
Yeah.
The people that win are those watching this fight. I think it's going to be one for the ages. I think the general public is the real winner in all of this. So on that note, I'll let you.
Can you imagine putting these two fucked up freaks in like a UFC ring?
I was imagining
awesome that would be.
Did you know that like that fucking dude from Epic Mealtime does like low key celebrity UFC fights now?
Oh God, no, I didn't.
So
I
was putting like on the same card as that. Let's put fucking Loys Ape versus the Fiji Mermaid.
Okay, and I would watch it as the thing. I would definitely watch it. I think that the Fiji Mermaid wins. But here's the thing: Loys Ape is gonna wind up to hit him with the big fucking ape punch. Mm-hmm. But he's gonna when you're squaring up with your opponent, you finally get a good look in their eyes, right?
Yeah.
And the Loys Ape gets a good look at the Fiji Mermaid's eyes filled with utter despair and agony. And I think Loys Ape becomes so astonished and depressed that it just no longer has the will to fight. And we're talking, this is just a tie. This is going to be a tie between the two of them.
A real no contest.
Yeah, no contest. Loys Ape is going to sit down and curl up into the fetal position and cry, and the Fiji Mermaid is going to just sit there with its mouth agape in pure agony, tits out. So,
all right,
that's my suggestion.
I was trying to come up with like what would be the funniest thing to do a run in on here. Like, what if like P.T. Barnum does a run in with like a chair and it gets the whole fight thrown out?
Yeah, P.T. Barnum
because like a bunch of people are seeing the Fiji Mermaid without paying him.
Yes, and P.T. Barnum runs in with the chair, and Loys comes from under the ring with a bag full of thumbtacks and just fucking puts them all over. And Loys is getting his punches in until P.T. and he's able to sort of grapple P.T. Barnum and he's sort of trying to hoist him, but he can't quite get the suplex. And then bam. Back elbow from P.T. Barnum that he regains control and he just fucking power slams Loys onto the thumbtacks. And in the process, destroys the Fiji Mermaid, just tears her in half as well. While Loys Ape has, climbed over the ropes and gotten the fuck out of there. So that would be fun to have a sort of cryptid match that's, devolves into a big wrestling match between the two, weirdos who curated them.
We're going fucking full like TNA run-in nonsense bullshit here in this fight. That's
absolutely.
All I'm gonna say.
Sting's there for whatever reason.
And he's Joker Sting.
Yeah. So, Niall, that is two hoaxes. I have plenty more where that came from. So down the line, we're gonna have to talk about some more of these blatant hoaxes in the cryptozoological community, and I'm frankly looking forward to talking about them. So
I'm into it. So yeah, do you want to take care of some business?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. If you want to follow us on social media, we're on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/It Gets Weird Podcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're probably there.
Follow us on twitch.com, or is it .tv? I can't remember.
Twitch.tv.
Twitch.tv/It Gets Weird. We're there. We stream. It's been busy this last week, and it continues to be busy. I'm going to be out of town once again, but we'll be back again real soon. Me and Colin playing games on there, and hopefully we'll do something. I think Niall and I have discussed maybe doing another different thing on there soon. Yeah, so
I want to play when the AEW game comes out. I want to stream that.
Yeah, definitely. So follow us on Twitch. If you like video games, or if you don't, I don't care, actually. Just do it either way. And hey, it's been a minute. We've only been getting people trying to promote their bullshit in our email lately. So please, email us at itgetsweirdpodcast@gmail.com. Email me solutions to good ways that I can put myself out of my misery in this heat. I'm literally, my brain is fucking frying right now, trying to talk about apes and mermaids. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you get access to the show It Gets Weird TV that comes out every other week. Right now, we're talking about season 1 of the X-Files. We talk about weird TV shows, paranormal, UFOs, whatever. And the listeners, the donators, the patrons, I should say, get to vote for what shows we watch on there. So that comes out every other week on Thursdays. At the $5 tier, you get access to It Gets Weird TV, plus another bonus show that comes out in the off weeks of It Gets Weird TV. Sometimes it's my show, sometimes it's Niall's show, sometimes we watch a movie. We do all kinds of stuff on there. So what that means, though, at the $5 tier is you're getting bonus content every single week. That is a bonus episode every week, plus all the back catalog stuff that we have on there as well. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to the main show 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday, and you get access to the Discord where we're hanging out, talking about stuff. People are sharing all kinds of cryptid stuff, UFO, conspiracy content. It's great. We also have a $1 tier, which is just a tip for us. You don't get anything out of it. You're just saying, hey, I like your show. Thanks for doing what you do. Here's $1. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird Podcast.
All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for continuing to support the show. Tell all of your friends about It Gets Weird Podcast, because we'd love to keep growing.
Oh, yeah.
The fan base. Thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird, and I've been Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.